social, and personal factors per se. So this exactly is something what we have already discussed in the context of our session that is yesterday. We would just be doing a quick recap on what we exactly are going to do. So effectively, what is it that influences consumer behavior? So we said that cultural factors are important, and cultural factors are basically consisting of cultures, subcultures, and social classes. So within these, we decided to see what exactly are the different type of cultures. We would have already seen, like when it comes to interacting with the different type of people existing within. And then within cultures, we've got subcultures, and within subcultures, we even have social classes. So we have defined these factors yesterday as to what exactly are these, what contributes to culture, what contributes to a subculture, and what contributes to social classes. Now, very quickly, we will quickly be having a quick recap of what we had discussed about these dimensions yesterday. That is, culture, they are important influencers to consumer buying behavior, and eventually, culture is an important determinant of a person's wants and needs. So, each culture consists of a smaller subculture and provides specific identification and socialization for their members. So effectively, if you are connected with different type of groups on your social network, this is actually a cause and effect relationship of the subculture that you belong to it. And subcultures might include things like, for example, nationalities. It could include things like different racial groups or religion or even geographical regions. Virtually all human societies actually, they exhibit some sort of social stratification, and more often in the context of social classes. Now, these are relatively homogeneous, and they are enduring the divisions in a society. Either it could be hierarchically ordered or with members who share similar values, similar interests, or behavior. And that, I think, would be visible in case of the different type of social media groups that basically all of you are members of. So let's say, for example, you have got different type of social media groups, and here you would be actually members. So what exactly consists of that group is that you have some sort of a similarity in the context of some sort of a liking, or some sort of views or interests or behaviors, or some sort of a common hobbies or common characteristics which exactly bind you to that specific type of a social group. And that effectively is an important aspect towards analyzing the social factors, and that is responsible for the aspect of consumer behavior by marketeers. So I think now we would be stopping the entry because it's already 10 minutes past the time slot. So I think the rest of the students can wait, because we can't be putting the entire lot of 87 of you to uh, the interest of people who could not join within the first 10 minutes. Anyway, so let us get on full steam ahead with the class. Now, we decided to have a look at the different type of reference groups. That is what influences consumer behavior. So we did discuss about the social factors. We said that there are different type of reference groups, and one of these reference groups is the family, and the social role and the status that affects our buying behavior. So if you try to look at the different type of social roles which exactly are there, family, reference groups, cliques, or the roles and status, they exactly impact our buying behavior. And a person's reference groups are the groups that have a direct face to face or an indirect influence on your attitude and behavior. So effectively the type of people that you exactly are connected with, they impact your behavior, they impact your attitude and your behavior. So cliques are actually smaller group whose members interact very frequently. Like for example, if you have the class group that we have created for this marketing course, could be exactly an example of a clique that could be there. And the family is the most important consumer buying organization which is there in the society, and family members, they constitute the primary reference group, the influential primary reference group. So let's say for example you want to buy anything, you definitely would be discussing with your parents or with your peers or with your brothers or sisters or siblings or your father, mother. You definitely would like to take their opinion in the context of the product or services that you intend to purchase, uh, especially if it has some sort of a value for you, because you want to take their opinion also into it, because they might also the type of an association that you have is going to be talking about how you intend to be using their inputs in your decision making. So the role of family plays a very important aspect, and we exactly have many other groups beyond family. Like for example, we have organizations, we have got clubs. There are often important source of information to help define the norms for the behavior that we actually exhibit. Now, we can also define a person within the position in each group in terms of the role and the status. Let's say, for example, there is a person who exactly is the head of the institution, or a role, for example, who is a decision maker, or somebody who exactly holds the money. All of them are having different type of role, and it talks about the different type of a status that they actually hold. So role and status also plays a very important aspect. Now, there are certain type of group influence also which is there. Now groups have a direct influence and are called as membership groups. Some of these are primary groups with whom a person interacts fairly continuously and informally, okay, such as family, friends, neighbors, co-workers, your classmates. People also belong to secondary groups. Now within the groups there can be a secondary group also. There could be these could be professionals, they could be religious, or let's say for example they tend to be more formal and require less continuous interaction. So effectively membership can be having both the primary as well as a secondary orientation. And there could also be aspirational groups. These are people who you wish to join, or disassociative group, that is you don't want to actually be associated with. Let's say for example there is a very interesting group, like it could be a group of like group of professionals or group of consultants or group of entrepreneurs or group of social workers or non NGOs that you actually want to be a part of. Or let's say for example if you want to be a part of an NGO like Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, so definitely that's an aspirational group that you all want to be a part of, because you want to see the type of work that is exactly being carried out. Also there could be one sort of a group which could be a very negative group where you don't want to be a part of. Let's say for example it could be a group which is associated with some sort of I mean, this is not a personal opinion, but I feel that, let's say, for example, some sort of a political group, which exactly is creating some sort of a divisive orientation in the mindset of people and distributing the society into different fragments, or poisoning the society because with some negative thoughts, or trying to fragment the society into different groups. Such could be the people who exactly are detrimental to, because they're only associated with their micro interests, and they're not there for building a social harmony in the system, and creating some sort of a divide and rule sort of a policy for their own benefits, or poisoning people's mindset, or making them disassociative or distractive, or not working for the interest of the society or the environment or the country at large, against the national interest. Such type of people could be there. There could be negative people also there. So you don't want to be a part of that sort of a group, because we're all forward looking people who have a very important aspect, because the very reason that we exist in this group takes a lot of effort in coming to this level, and that speaks about the aspirational groups that we want to be part of. But I have to discuss this aspect because it is one of the reference groups, even if the dissociative group is also a reference group. So that is why I have decided to talk about it. Then there are basically opinion leaders. Now, you basically reference group influence is a very important aspect and determines how to reach and influence the group opinion leaders. Now, opinion leader happens to be a person who offers informal advice or information about a specific product or product category, such as several brands, which is the best and which product may be used. So let's say, for example, if you have used a product, if you're very satisfied with that product, if you have actually reviewed that product, you become an opinion leader for that specific type of a product. Now, we talked about something called as families. That is, there are two types of families in any sort of a buyer's life: the family of orientation, which consists of the parents and siblings. From parent, a person acquires an orientation towards religion, politics, economics, a sense of personal ambition, self worth, love. All these things are acquired from this family. A more direct influence on a day to day buying behavior is a family of procreation. That is a person's spouse, their children, because children also happen to be a great influencer. So in many type of a research, the first question we put forth is we try to capture the demographics of the family. That is, who exactly is the family of your procreation, or who exactly is the family of your orientation. So we try to take inputs, and also we try to see who exactly is the person who is influencing you to make a purchase decision or things of that sort. Now, you know, see, again, culture plays a very important role into this important aspect, because if you're looking at the US or the West, we exactly have different type of association with the family of orientation and procreation. But in India, we've got a different type of orientation. Like family of orientation plays a very vital role as much as the family of procreation does. So in US, a traditional husband-wife relationship, their engagement in purchase and the variety, this is varied by the different type of product categories. The wife has usually acted as the family's main purchasing agent, especially for your food, for your sundries, for your staple clothing items, and so on and so forth. Now, purchasing roles also keep changing, and marketeers would be wise to see how men and women are as possible targets. So we basically, as marketeers, have to be very careful about looking at what exactly is happening and how people are actually behaving in. So what actually happens is very important, and this aspect is supposed to be taken into account, because we as marketeers should know who exactly is influencing the purchase behavior. Now, again, another important aspect to take into account is which member of the family is actually trying to um, influence any sort of a purchase behavior per se. This exactly would make us focus our strategies directed at that specific influencer, because that would help me sell my products per se. So let's say when we're talking about things like influencing the consumer behavior, your taste in food or furniture or recreation is often related to your age. Consumption is also shaped by the different type of family life cycle and the number of and the family age and the number and the gender of the people in your household at any point of time. I would not be allowing any more entry, because entry has been stopped, and the message has been floated on the group. So there's no point trying to pester me for entry, because we've got to take care of the people who joined on time. So again, another important aspect I would like to focus my attention on is that you're trying to identify the occupational group and above average interest in their products and services. Let's say, for example, we want to actually customize our products for certain occupational groups. If you see, even computer makers like today, they are selling products and softwares on the context that they are trying to cater to computers only for student community. Then you have got for professionals, for business. So even Windows, if you're looking at the Microsoft Office, they have got a students edition. This basically students edition is very interesting because it offers you some of the, they've got some sort of a marketing research they've seen in terms of the consumer behavior towards the utility of the important softwares that need to be packaged in. So you'll be very interesting, it'll be an interesting option to find that if you're looking at MS Office per se, you will find MS Word, MS PowerPoint, and MS Excel. Chances are you might even find MS Notes, Office Notes also in, but you will not find MS Publishers or things like even you might not find MS Access here. But if you're looking at an MS Office from an enterprise edition, then definitely you'd find, or a publication, then you'd find MS Office Publishers also within that sort of a kitty of the software which is offered for that segment. So effectively, this is content utility which basically defines the type of product mix that we are going to use in order to have that sort of a product. And this is affected by certain type of aspects like how much amount of spendable income that you have, the level, stability, pattern over time, savings, assets, including percentage that is exactly liquid with you, debts, borrowing power, attitude towards spending and saving. So all these things are actually looked into marketing, marketeers, by looking at the occupation and the economic circumstances of the different type of consumer group which is there. Also, by personality, what we mean is a set of distinguishing human psychological traits that actually refer to relatively consistent and enduring responses to the environmental stimuli. Like, let's say, for example, we describe personality in terms of things like how self-confidence a person has. What is the level of self-confidence a person or a group has? Or how much amount of dominating that person is? Or what exactly is the type of autonomy that person actually enjoys, or deference, or is sociable, or is adaptable, or how defensive the person is. Now, these exactly are certain personality and self-concept traits that we look for within the domain of personal factors. Now, consumers often choose certain brands which exactly is associated with a brand personality that is consistent with their self-concept. That is how we view ourselves. Now, though the match may be instead be based on the consumer's ideal self-concept, but we would like to understand how we would like to view ourselves, or even others' self-concept, how we think others see us. Now, this is very important because what your fashion sense dictates is this context. That is, how do you look yourself as? How do you categorize yourself as? Who you exactly think you are, or what you want to be considered yourself as, and then how you think others look at you in that context. That is what we call as your self-concept, that is ideal self-concept, and others' self-concept, that is what others think you to be as. Now, this basically is very important because people from the same subculture, social class, and occupation may adopt different type of lifestyles. And lifestyle is a person's pattern of living in a world as expressed in activities, interests, and opinions. So, effectively, these are very important aspects when it comes to deciding upon the personal factors per se towards making any sort of a consumer decision. Now, marketeers and the environmental stimuli, they always enter into a consumer's consciousness and a set of key psychological processes with certain consumer characteristics which are a result of the decision process and purchase decisions. Now, a marketeer's task thus is to understand what happens in the consumer's consciousness between the arrival of the outside marketing stimuli and which impact the ultimate purchase decision. Now, we have here on the screen, which is visible, five key psychological processes. Now, things like motivation or perception or learning, emotions, which exactly are fundamentally influencing your key psychological processes. So effectively, let us try to see that these are the factors which exactly influence us to make any sort of a purchase decision per se. Now, this is exactly what goes inside the mind of a normal consumer when you are interacting or when you are deciding to purchase any sort of a product or a service. So these are the factors that exactly happening as you interact with any sort of a product or service, and this is captured in something which is called as the model of consumer behavior. So effectively, there are something like around 6 blocks that you can see from the left to the right. From the left starts with marketing stimuli. These are signals. Okay, now these marketing signals can be in the form of the 4 P's that we call in marketing mix. It is products, place, price, and promotion, which is reflected here as products and services for the first P, that is product. Second P is price. Third P is place, which is represented here as distribution. And the fourth P is promotion, which is represented as communication. So these are the 4 P's. And then these marketing stimuli are triggered with other set of stimuli. Now these stimuli are environmental signals. That is because every human being is existing within environment, and definitely these marketing signals, that is product, place, price, and promotion, are like joined with other type of signals, and these signals are basically economic signals, technological signals, political signals, and cultural signals, which exactly help actually hitting the consumer towards the two domain. That is the first factor, that is consumer psychology, as we have just discussed in the earlier slide, the key psychological processes, that is motivation, perception, learning, and memory. So this impacts over there, and then certain other characteristics that we have already discussed, that is basically things like the different type of groups over here that we have already discussed, and they basically are cultural, social, and personal characteristics. So effectively, the consumer is impacted by different type of consumer psychology and characteristics, that is between motivation, perception, learning, and memory. And at the second block level, that is whether it is has impact on the context of a cultural level, the social level, or the personal level, the characteristics. Now these basically impact to address something called as the buying decision process. Now this process is involving in something as a series of 5 steps. The first step starts with problem recognition, that is recognizing the problem that you have. Then the second step is called as searching for information. Third step is when you have searched the information, you got a certain amount of information, you look at the alternatives that you've got. Then you end up with the purchase decision and your satisfaction after the purchase decision. So effectively, this is the buying decision process. And then you go down to the purchase decision. That is, after your buying decision process, you go to the purchase. That is, you look for something called as whether it's a product choice, whether it's a brand choice, whether it's a dealer choice, whether it's a purchase amount, purchase timing, or the purchase method. Now, this basically is the outcome of the purchase decision. So effectively, the choices that you have actually finally made to look at the solution to the problem, which was triggered by the consumer psychology and consumer characteristics, which was influenced by other stimuli, which was actually responsible by marketing strategies, the different marketing mix. So effectively, this exactly is the process of the consumer behavior model. So with this, I am going to come down to some sort of a key psychological processes. As I have already said about the consumer psychology, we'll be looking at some of the key psychological processes. Now, it starts with motivation. That is, motivation means that it's basically a need. This motivational need means it's a motive when it is aroused to have a sufficient desire or to drive us to act. I give you an example of the aspect in the context that the key psychological process, and I'm going to take up a small caselet at this point of time. Uh, One of your friends, they decided to ask me what exactly is the source of my information for the different type of caselets that exactly I discuss during our interaction. I just responded that these basically are actually researched. I do look up into a number of Indian products and brands and try to see which exactly fits in for the type of a discussion that we are currently doing. And I would be happy to share the details, but many times the details might be a bit like intriguing. That is, you have to look into search the deep net and get some more information about it. But right now my actually focus happens to be from Indian case studies, so that you can relate to the products that you have actually used over a period of time and understand the concepts that I'm currently trying to discuss. So I will start with one very interesting product and that we exactly have been using, and I want you to pay attention to this product. This is called as Goodnight Naturals. Now, Goodnight as a brand has centered on evolving lifestyle and needs of its consumers. The prevailing attitude among its consumers has always been in its reference point. The recent trend of natural being better was read aptly by the brand as it maneuvered through prevailing and dominant consumer sentiments of remaining close to neutral products. Now, Goodnight Naturals mosquito repellent cream is what we're talking about. This has been enriched with natural ingredients like tulsi, lavender, and offers moisturizing and skincare benefits for the environmental conscious group of consumers. Now, the color that is happens to be the pale green colored packaging is indicative of the product's soothing properties and its proximity to nature. So technically what has happened is, when we're talking about mosquito repellents, we are trying to have different type of products for mosquito repellents. And if you're looking at this brand called Goodnight, Goodnight came up with these liquidators, but then more often is the use of another category of product like Goodnight cream, mosquito repellent creams. Now, effectively, what happens was we started with a product called Odomos, if you remember. That was, but the smell of Odomos was horrible. Like it would put people off. So mosquitoes and people both would be running away from people who put on these Odomos cream. So in fact, it did not do very well. But then that was the only option that was there for if you had to go out and you had to be like safe from mosquitoes, because mosquitoes would be repelled by this sort of a pungent smell that actually came from this product that was Goodnight Odomos. So Goodnight entered into that market and said that if we can come up with a mosquito repellent cream. So when it came up with a cream, generally people would associate that it could be harmful, because if it's poisonous for the for the mosquitoes, definitely it's going to have some sort of a harm on your skin, and you're putting that product on your skin. So that exactly was something which was very, very disturbing for many type of people. So then it decided to understand that this exactly is the fear factor which exactly is not responsible for it to impact its. So effectively they tried to look into the consumer psychology, and after learning and the motivation, they came up with this sort of a orientation that let us come up with something like an offering with a Goodnight Naturals. So Goodnight as a brand was centered on evolving the lifestyle needs of the consumers, and prevailing attitude of consumer has always been the reference point. So the recent trend of natural was being better was aptly used as a brand as it as it maneuvered through the dominant consumer sentiments of nature products. So Goodnight Natural Mosquito Repellent Cream, enriched with natural ingredients like tulsi and lavender, offered soothing and moisturizing skincare benefits along with the environment conscious group of consumers. And also, if you look at the color, that was pale green hued packaging, indicated that the product is soothing properties and its proximity to nature. So it was a thought that if you can have a cream which exactly is skin friendly and exactly is offering moisturizing benefits and is skincare benefits, and it also at the same time drives away these mosquitoes, definitely this product is going to be understood in the context of the consumer psychology and would actually have a greater reach to consumers per se. So effectively, this is very important when you're addressing the key psychological processes of the consumer in order to look into incorporating it as a feature of your product so that the product actually ends up selling. Now, we would be looking at the next important aspect, that is motivation. Now, definitely, you must have heard about all these things in your concepts of management class, where you'll be talking about the Freud's theory or the Maslow's theory of need or the Herzberg's two-factor theory. I would not be going down into detail because that would digress me from our discussion. But this is important because I have to discuss about the motivational theories, because this impacts my consumer buying behavior, and I have to look into this motivation as an important dimension when it comes to deciding what consumers actually prefer in the different type of products. So I would be looking at these theories from that context. Very quickly, I will just be detailing some aspects of these theories. Now, Sigmund Freud, he assumed the psychological forces are actually impacting people's behavior. Okay, and they are largely unconscious, and the person cannot fully understand his or her own motivation. So, what happens is that our behavior is guided by our subconscious motivations, and many a time we don't know basically what exactly is making us behave in a specific way, but this actually is guided by our subconscious motivation. But as a marketeer, we have to understand what are these subconscious motivations in the mind of the consumer, which exactly I can actually trigger so that I can make him behave in a specific way. I must understand at this point of time, some of you might be thinking that I think we are trying to approach on this sort of marketing orientation on an unethical basis. That is, we are trying to subconsciously control our consumers into buying our products. But basically, you must understand that this is not a time to discuss about the ethics, because that domain could be handled at a much later event. But right now, I'm trying to understand what motivation is. So that exactly should be the sentiment as of now, as we discuss, because I want to know what exactly are the factors towards motivation, which exactly motivates a consumer to take a specific buying decision. So coming down to the next theory, which is Maslow's theory of need. Maslow's hierarchy of need. Now, you all must have said that there are certain type of lowest unmet needs, and behavior is driven by them. So, Abraham Maslow decided to explain why people are driven by particular needs at particular time. Okay, human needs are arranged in sort of a hierarchy from most to the least pressing. Most pressing need to the least pressing need. So, the most pressing needs are the most important needs for us. It could be things like psychological needs to safety needs, safety needs, social needs, esteem needs, self-actualization needs. You know, you've seen that pyramid that has. I'll just share with you that pyramid right now. So here you see Maslow's theory of needs. Uh, I again would like to have a voice confirmation. Can you see this slide, the triangle?
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much for that voice confirmation. I just wanted to reassure that we don't have a system glitch, and we need to address issues. So good. So we have the lowest order needs, which are the basic needs. That these are the psychological needs: the food, water, shelter. Because this is because we this is something very basic. This is because without this we would not be thinking of higher needs. But once this is satisfied, then we go to the next level. So food, water, shelter, these are some of the basic needs which exactly are there, and people will try to satisfy this first. Then they go to the next level of need, which is called as the security or protection, which is called the safety needs. That is the next level in the Maslow's hierarchy of needs. After that comes social need. That is, you want to become society, you want to become a member of a group, you want to have a sense of belonging, you want to be loved, you want to be liked, you want to be respected. All these are social needs. Then comes the next need, that is called an esteem need. That is, you need to have your self esteem, you need to be recognized, you need to have some level of status. So this is the next need. When the social need of belonging and love is fulfilled, then you're looking for self esteem needs or recognition need or status as a need. And even when that is fulfilled, you need to have some sort of a need, which is the fifth level, which is called as self actualization need. That is, self-development and realization about yourself and others. That is, you go to a higher level of need, and then you feel that why exactly, you start asking questions. That is, what exactly is self-development? How exactly you're going to realize yourself, and so on and so forth. Now, this is in the context of the Maslow's orientation because of your needs, and then of course consumers are looking into it also, and these are the motivational needs. Then we have the Herzberg's two-factor theory, that is behavior guided by dissatisfiers and satisfiers. Now, Frederick Herzberg, he developed this two-factor theory that distinguished between dissatisfiers, that is factors that are cause dissatisfaction. There are certain factors that cause you dissatisfaction, and satisfiers, that is factors that cause satisfaction. So what are the factors that make you dissatisfied, and what are the factors that make you satisfied? And he said that the absence of dissatisfier is not only enough to motivate a purchase, but satisfaction must also be present. That is, satisfiers must also be present. For example, a computer that does not come with a warranty is actually a dissatisfier. Yet, the presence of a product warranty does not act as a satisfier or a motivator for a purchase, because it is not a source of intrinsic satisfaction. That is, the ease of use is a satisfier. So, effectively, we have got to be seeing that whether a warranty is present or whether a warranty is absent, that could not be actually responsible for making a purchase behavior. That is, it could not be motivating us to make a purchase. Rather, what would be, that is the ease of use. How easily can I use a machine? How easily can I use my laptop or my computer? That could be the reason on the basis of which I would make my buying decision. So this exactly is towards the theory of motivation, and this plays a very vital role to this making a decision for the purchase. Another important aspect is the key psychological processes which are there. We have already discussed about the key psychological processes, and very quickly, I would like you to pay your attention to this aspect towards the first key psychological process, that is called as perception. Now, what exactly is your perception? Perception and reality are two very interesting aspects where basically you are thinking that this exactly is perception, but effectively it could have an impact on reality. So, perception, many times people perceive that this is real, but actually that is just their thought process. It's basically how you. So, let's say, for example, the process by which we select, organize, and interpret information inputs or to create a meaningful picture in the world. Now, it's a very interesting photo that you're seeing. That's the in this slide. You know, this is something very interesting because this drink is called as orange, and the fruit is also called as orange. So, if I want to ask you on the basis of your knowledge, what exactly would be the taste of this orange juice? Definitely, it will be, many of you might say sweet, but I would say it would be sweet and tangy. So it has that sense of tang. So you see, they decided to use a word called tang as a brand for orange juices. So Tang initially started with orange juice, and then it came up with lemon juice and all other citric juices. So effectively, this exactly is a key psychological process that actually comes in. That is how a person is actually influenced by his or her perception, and this perception or situation. Now, in marketing, perceptions are very important because, and more important than reality, because this affects consumers' actual behavior. So, I'm not basically looking at reality, but I'm looking at perception because it is going to make a meaningful picture in your mental world, and that mental picture is actually going to help me sell my products. So perception and reality are two very important aspects, but looking at perception per se, we would be defining perception into four domains. The first domain is called as selective attention. I would be discussing all of them one by one, and we exactly have to just be careful about the selective distortion as well. Now, when we have selective attention, then we have selective distortion, then we have selective retention, what we exactly are actually retaining. That's also very important. And we would be looking at subliminal perception. So we exactly would be discussing how exactly we went to be looking at perception per se. Um, I want you to just think back on this important aspect as to what you make sense of this domain, that is perception. Because perception is an important dimension, and I'm going to look at perception from orientation of a small caselet, and we will try to see how there's this aspect called as there's a brand called the Chrysler, and Chrysler, like this probably this caselet you'll probably find in your text that I have shared with all of you. So you can always look at analyzing consumer markets. Within that, you might find this text. This is about Chrysler. When Chrysler decided to offer a new sedan, it had already done a great deal of traditional marketing research and suggested US consumers wanted excellent gas mileage, safety, and prices. So these are the three factors that they thought that the consumers wanted. However, it was a tough qualitative research that Chrysler discovered what cultural anthropologist Clotaire Raphael calls the code. The unconscious meaning people give to particular marketing offering. So there are certain unconscious things that people actually attribute, and they basically are the decision makers. Now, the first interviewers took a role of a visitor from another planet, asking participants to help them understand the product in question. So it is something like that movie that most of you must have seen, the PK, in which Amir Khan actually acts as a UFO, like an alien, and tries to discover some of the realities and perceptions, which exactly, because he has no background knowledge of information about Earth, and of course it was a very interesting orientation to this sort of a study that exactly was done by Chrysler in order to find out about the offerings of their new sedan and beyond the standard offerings of things like price, safety, and gas mileage. So you see, there was a very interesting aspect. The interviewer took the role of a alien, that is a visitor from another planet, and asked participants to help them understand the product in question. So it asked the participants who exactly were trying to be probable car owners. He wanted them to explain this alien what exactly they meant by this product that they're trying to purchase. Now, this would give them their perception about the product they're trying to actually purchase. The participants told stories about the product, and finally, after realizing relaxing exercise, they wrote about their experience with it. So, in a way, Chrysler learned the cookie cutter sedans were off the board, and it used information from this session to create the PT Cruiser with its highly distinctive retro design. This sedan was one of the most successful US car launches in the recent history. So effectively, this entire game of designing a product not on the basis of general perception that the people are looking for mileage, the people are looking for price, the people are looking for safety. This is there. But what exactly people perceive in a product was the reason where they tried to take a feedback from the people who exactly have a perception about the product as well as people who have used the product. And that basically gave the orientation that this is the perception people have. And if that was built inside the product, it actually clicked. So effectively, there's a lot which goes into designing the product, and the customer is in the center of the product. And that exactly is the responsibility of any sort of a marketeer if you want to actually achieve the aspect of marketing. That is, you try to put the customer in the center of the product, design the product for its products and the features and service, because at the end of the day, the product is going to be used by the consumer. So the consumer's needs is what it's trying to meet, and that exactly is the role played by the key psychological processes. And we have looked into factors like motivation, we have looked into perception, and we will be looking at another key psychological process which is called as learning. But I think for that we will be revisiting again, because we have, I think, about time. It's about 10:30 per se, and we would be calling off this session. So we will continue in our next class with this context. I would just be stopping my share and returning back to the main screen where I'll be interacting. If there is any sort of a query or question or comment, you can unmute your microphones and always speak up. Um, yes, I'm waiting for any sort of a query if there is any.
So,
Yes, Subia.
so under the Herzberg's theory,
Yes.
you talked about a concept where you said that warranty will be not be under the satisfier section. Can you explain that concept once again?
See, basically, what we mean is that presence of a warranty will not make you purchase a product, or absence of a warranty will not make you not purchase a product. Rather, presence of some sort of a utility, like for example usability, would be a factor that would be important for you to make a purchase decision. That would be, it will motivate you to make a purchase decision. Or let's say value for money, or ease of use, or the cost of use. These could be some of the motivators which will actually make you make purchase the product per se. That we wanted was a computer. So effectively, whether the warranty cannot be the only deciding factor. If warranty is there, it will not make you purchase the product unless the product is easy to use, unless the product has a value for money. Let's say, for example, there may be so many gadgets that you have purchased but probably not used. They were offering warranty, but probably people have not used simply because they were not easy to use, or they could not understand the process, or found it very cumbersome or difficult to use. So many times people, even if they have warranty, they may not be actually propelled to purchase. Or even if the product does not has a warranty, you may not like feel like not purchasing that product. But if you have a high level of use, you will definitely go for that product, whether it has a warranty or not. Let's say, for example, you want a writing instrument. If you want a pen to write, you have a examination coming up, or you take down important notes. Now you're not going to be looking whether this pen can be replaceable. You immediately need a pen and you start want to write it because you have a instant need for that sort of a product. So you, whether you have a warranty for that product or you do not have a warranty, may not be a motivating factor for you to make a purchase decision. That is what I meant with this example, but that could not be generalized for every example. Okay, so I hope I have made myself clear on this count. Sobia?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Okay, we had a question coming from Kanishka as well. I could find her unmuting her microphone, or was it by mistake?
Sir, I wanted to ask about subliminal perception.
Okay. Subliminal perception. I will be discussing about perception in detail in our next class. We actually ran out of time, Kanishka. Otherwise, I would have gone in detail of explaining you about subliminal perception. But I will just tell you, because I don't want you to be disturbed for one day. Actually, what happens is, subliminal perception means that marketeers, they actually have some sort of a message in the ad or packaging, and consumers are not consciously aware about them, yet they impact the behavior. Like it's clear that there are certain mental processes of a human being. They may include certain subtle subconscious effects, like you have a certain type of elements which exactly change moderately importantly for a strong belief that is held. Let's say, for example, if I write down on a packaging for a product that with this purchase, your 1 rupee goes to social, of to blind people, or to challenge physically challenged individuals. You're contributing 1 rupee to a physically challenged society, or you are giving us contribution by purchasing this product. You are contributing to the environment. Now, this may directly not have the product may not be directly impacting the environment or having an effect, but it is going to have a subliminal perception that by purchasing that product, you are going to help the environment. So that exactly is meant by subliminal perception, but I will be looking into it in much detail in the next class where I'll be discussing perception in detail. Hope I'm answered.
Okay, sir. Yes, sir. Thank you.
So we have overstepped time by around 7 minutes. Sorry for this oversight, and I want you to actually disconnect. But if there is a question, I would definitely like to take.